Hey, you want to talk about some legal documents? There's a lot of news, and when I say news, I really mean rumors and speculation and some actual factual news about the Open Gaming License, or the OGL, for Dungeons & Dragons. A lot of this news is negative, but 99% of all the discussion about this is coming from people like me who use the OGL to some capacity, but we're not experts in it, right? That's why I was super hesitant to even make a video about it, but I was working on one. I recorded it yesterday, and while I was recording it, we got some actual news dropped by Wizards of the Coast with their actual plans for the OGL in 2023 and beyond. And when I was thinking about, okay, how am I gonna fix that video now? I put up this poll just to see who's actually interested in this stuff, and it turns out that about 60% of people are trying to follow this news in some capacity, and the 40% who aren't are still interested to learn about it and what we actually know is going to happen. So that's what I'm going to condense into this video. But full disclosure, usually I script almost word for word all of my videos. This is very much off the cuff. We're just going to kind of roll, and hopefully it doesn't turn into a super long video, but here we go. And by the way, I'm Bob. This is where we learn how to have more fun playing D&D together, and I'm making this video to try to give really just a sort of positive, kind of level-headed take on all this news, because honestly it's really frustrating just going on Twitter at all right now and seeing D&D creators at each other's throats about this thing. I really don't like it. So let's start with the basics. What is the OGL? It's the Open Gaming License, first published in the time of D&D 3.5. And along with the OGL, there's this other really important document called the Standard Reference Document, or the SRD. I actually don't even know off the top of my head if it's called the Standard Reference Document or something else, but it's known as the SRD. And what the SRD is a collection of game rules and terminology. The 5e version actually looks a lot like the 5e basic rules. And the OGL allows you to use any game mechanics and terminology that are in the SRD in your own third-party publications for Dungeons & Dragons. So that's why any third-party book that you see at your game store or you grab off Kickstarter or whatever, all these books have a legal section that usually pastes in the Open Gaming License, because that's how they are licensed to use the mechanics that are within the rest of their book. And that's my experience with the OGL. I publish on a monthly basis these really short, one-shot 5e compatible modules on Patreon. They include new monsters, new magic items, and of course they reference things like existing spells and existing conditions. And because I reference all of these things and I use terms like saving throw and strength athletics check, by my non-legal expert understanding, I must include the OGL in my publication. Now, as a little tangent, there is some discussion that in the US, apparently, you can't actually copyright game mechanics at all. Therefore, the whole OGL thing is really just a facade that we don't need, and you can write anything you want because Wizards of the Coast could never pursue you legally. But frankly, all that is also being said by people who aren't legal experts as far as I can tell. Therefore, as someone who's publishing this stuff, I just feel much safer using the license. And as you're probably aware, as someone who is interested in third-party D&D materials, every year you see Kickstarters going up for millions, literally over $1 million, sometimes $2 million for these third-party D&D books that can only exist, seemingly, by using the OGL. So it makes all the sense in the world that Wizards of the Coast sees this and is all right, we should be getting a little piece of that pie. They're a business. That makes sense, right? So for a long time, people have been expecting that with this new edition, there would be some changes to the Open Gaming License, making it a little less open. And for the last year or so, that was just an idea. But last month, in November, here's a thumbnail, this video went up on YouTube claiming to have an unconfirmed, but a leak nonetheless, a leak from Wizards of the Coast, saying that there will be no OGL with the next edition. That really stirred things up, because people like me, again, people like me who aren't experts, but we use the OGL, are if there's no OGL, can I continue to have my job? Because yeah, while I do all this YouTube stuff, a third of my income is from Patreon. So it would be really bad if that suddenly dropped out. And that's me, right? Think about the thousands and thousands of people who are writers, who are editors, who are artists, designers, all just working and collaborating purely on written publication, rather than anything to do with video and the other aspects of what I do. For those people, this is their whole livelihood at stake. And it took probably a week or so for Wizards of the Coast to release a statement, responding to all of this controversy that was suddenly happening. But their statement didn't really clear things up a lot. Let's check it out. Wizards of the Coast said, "We will continue to support the thousands of creators making third-party D&D content with the release of OneD&D in 2024. That first part sounds very good, right? We will continue to support them. Okay, but let's continue. While it is certain our open gaming license, OGL, will continue to evolve, just as it has since its inception, we're too early in the development of OneD&D to give more specifics on the OGL or System Reference Document." That's what that actually stands for. And if you really read this, it's a very politically worded statement. It just says we'll continue to support them, but the OGL will change, but we're really not ready to say anything about it yet. So some people, according to my Twitter feed, half of people took this as oh, whew, we're good, they're gonna have an OGL, everything's fine. And about half of the other people said, oh my gosh, it's changing, we're gonna lose our jobs. And I should step back for a second and say, just when the first rumor came up, my take on it was, well, even if there's no new OGL for OneD&D, all that would really mean is, hey, I can't write about Ardlings in my adventures. Hey, I can't write about the Artificer, because the Artificer's not in there either. I won't be able to write about the Slowed Condition, or anything new that is strictly OneD&D material, not 5e material. I won't be able to use that if there's no new OGL, but the 5e OGL is an existing legal document that exists in perpetuity. So I'd be able to continue what I was doing, business as usual, using the old OGL. So personally, I wasn't that worried. Then this statement came out, and my take on it was, well, they said it's going to change, but they said there will be one, and they called it an open gaming license. That's important because in 4E, they changed to a gaming system license or a game system license, the GSL, and that was incredibly restrictive. And basically, that was kind of what forced the creation of Pathfinder using the 3.5 OGL. But then, just a couple days ago, we got some other leaked information. Again, so kind of rumors, kind of speculation, saying that Wizards of the Coast reached out to some really big publishers, right? Third-party publishers. So again, totally speculation, but just to give a frame of reference, this would be along the lines of publishers like Critical Role's, Darrington Press. This would be along the lines of Kobold Press. But these publishers, again, publishers in that realm, I'll say, received, and this was the rumor, NDAs, non-disclosure agreements from Wizards of the Coast, saying that, hey, if you sign this, we'll tell you about what we're planning for the OGL in OneD&D. And this rumor, again, had me a little worried, because obviously, if the OGL were gonna be open and continuing in a way that was free for us to create whatever we wanted, there wouldn't be this layer of secrecy happening here. That was my take. That was a lot of people's take. And then, again, we had half of people just saying, hey, this is just a rumor. What are you even talking about? None of this is confirmed. But the good thing that came out of it was, hey, let's all use this hashtag OpenD&D to really let Wizards of the Coast know that we want an open gaming license. Because if they're gonna take it away or twist it into something else, we need to know. Not only does this affect the thousands and thousands of people who created jobs for themselves doing this sort of stuff, but it really does affect the entire community. If there were no third-party publishing, if we an edition with only official books, that would be ridiculous, right? I don't think a lot of people believed it would be that bad. And now we know it's not going to be that bad, because we just got some first real factual information from Wizards of the Coast about it. This is a longer statement, but let's check it out. We love the interest and passion that the community has for D&D. We love D&D too. So when we see the D&D community concerned by rumors and misunderstandings, we want to clear the air and share the facts with you, even if it's a bit earlier than our original plan. You all matter to us, and we want to provide transparency on how D&D will continue supporting third-party creators. Here are the facts. 1. Will OneD&D include an SRD/be covered by an OGL? Yes. First, we're designing OneD&D with 5th edition backwards compatibility, so all existing creator content that is compatible with 5th edition will also be compatible with OneD&D. Second, we will update the SRD for OneD&D as we complete its development that is informed by the results of playtests that we're conducting with hundreds of thousands of D&D players now. So that first bullet point really just tells us, yes, there will be an SRD, yes, there will be an OGL. So kind of confirming what they said in that really loosey-goosey statement a week or two ago. 2. Will the OGL terms change? Yes. We will release version 1.1 of the OGL in early 2023. Let's pause there. So, hey, we're getting a newly updated OGL. That's fine. So it's probably going to have the Ardling and whatever in there. And they're releasing it in early 2023. That's pretty interesting. It's well before OneD&D is actually finished. So they're kind of encouraging people to already start publishing content for OneD&D. That's pretty interesting. But let's see what it takes to be able to do that. And actually, one other quick thing first, really important disclaimer they have here. The OGL needs an update to ensure that it keeps doing what it was intended to do. Allow the D&D community's independent creators to build and play and grow the game we all love without allowing things like third parties to mint D&D NFTs and large businesses to exploit our intellectual property. Basically, it's saying like, we want you to be able to use our game, but actually, hey, like all our core rules are in the SRD under the current OGL. We don't want people to just create 5e clones, basically like what happened with Pathfinder back in 3.5. They don't want that to happen again, understandably. So what's changing? First, we're making sure that OGL 1.1 is clear about what it covers and what it doesn't. OGL 1.1 makes clear it only covers material created for use in or as TTRPGs, and those materials are only ever permitted as printed media or static electronic files, like EPUBs and PDFs. Other types of content, like videos and video games, are only possible through Wizards of the Coast fan content policy, or a custom agreement with us. To clarify, outside of printed media and static electronic files, the OGL doesn't cover it. So that is saying something along the lines of, yeah, you're still going to be able to use the new OGL to create your PDFs every month, Bob. But you won't be able to make video games or videos with the OGL. My videos are commentary on D&D. As far as I understand, that should be under fair use. All right, but for the sake of speeding it up, the next part basically just says that, hey, VTTs are still going to be fine. In a way, they already have custom agreements with these people, Foundry, Roll20, whatever, those are fine. If you're making share-alike content, very little is going to change from what you're already used to. If you're making commercial content, obviously, again, these are the people who are actually worried about it, so here we go. Relatively little is going to change for most creators. For most of you who are selling custom content, here are a few new things you'll need to do. 1. Accept the license terms and let us know what you're offering for sale. So that is not very different from what already exists. Just by using the license already, the 5e existing one, you accept those terms. You don't have to sign anything. It's just that by using it, you admit that you are accepting the terms of the license you're using, if that makes sense. But it says you'll have to let them know what you're using it for. So that hints at another piece of information coming up, but let's look at this second point. Report OGL-related revenue annually if you make more than $50,000 in a year. Again, this affects like a higher tier of creators. One day I hope my Patreon content is making that much money, but it's not right now. And the funny thing is, even if it were, my Patreon is also where I host my podcast episodes and like the stuff that's going to go on to my second channel. It comes out a little early on Patreon, and I post other stuff there that doesn't use the OGL. So even if I were earning more than $50,000 on Patreon, how do I splice up what amount of that income is really coming from OGL related material? They're not clear on that yet. And point number 3, include a creator product badge on your work. That part, that's a part that gets me. It's like, you can use it, but you have to wear our uniform in a way. And again, you already needed to have the OGL within your document, but on your work, like that phrasing, again, it's just phrasing. This is just my interpretation. It sounds like it's a thing that'll need to be on the cover. So really this, if that's the case, it makes it very similar to the DM's Guild, where you do register with an account Obviously, everything you produce is going on there, so they know what you're producing, and the covers have to include the DMs Guild logo. It sounds like they're moving toward that model with the open gaming license. And the thing is, we'll finish this in a second, but to me, it does not read as open anymore. If you have to register with them, you have to tell them what you're producing. If you do make a significant amount of money on this, you have to report the income to them, and you have to stamp all of your work with their label. Yeah, it doesn't feel open. That's my comment on it right now. When we roll out OGL 1.1, we will also provide explanatory videos, FAQs, and a web portal for registration to make navigating these requirements as easy and intuitive as possible. We will also have help available to creators to navigate the new process. So yeah, basically all of this is going to be existing within a web portal that they control as well, and that's understandable. Again, that's how the DMs Guild works. For the fewer than 20 creators worldwide who make more than $750,000 in income in a year, we will add a royalty starting in 2024. So even for the creators making significant money selling D&D supplements and games, no royalties will be due for 2023, and all revenue below $750,000 in future years will be royalty free. And that's the end of the actual information. So again, some of those companies I named before, I don't even want to repeat names because, again, like those were all just maybes. Like, I don't know who's actually getting in touch with these people. But the big publishers, the names that you see who put out these multi-million-dollar Kickstarters every year, they're the ones who are going to have to pay royalties starting in 2024. And something maybe worth adding here is that my gut reaction to this and the gut reaction of a couple other creators who I talk to on the side about this sort of stuff said, the only reason that they would want that income information for everybody over 50K is so that in the future, they might drop that threshold for royalties. But they do have the line here saying all revenue below $750,000 in future years will be royalty free. And that's an interesting commitment to make this early, to say that, yeah, we will never charge royalties for people making under $750,000 in a year. But they said it, we'll see if they stick to it. And I have one more really important comment to share with you. So first, I want to paraphrase my response to this comment because it's just kind of my response to what we just heard. How are they going to convince these big third-party publishers to switch to the new license, where they would have to pay royalties if they could continue using the 5e license, which should be compatible with 1D&D, right? It's backwards compatible, so it should be fine to just continue with that license. So there must be some really great incentive being promoted here to these 20 or whatever big companies who got these NDAs about their special relationship that's being offered by Wizards of the Coast. But here's that last great take. From Benjamin Huffman, creator of the Pugilist class that you may have heard of, and a bunch of other really awesome things on DMs Guild. Here we go. I can understand why, at first blush, this looks acceptable to many small creators. It doesn't impact us much. What has me very worried, and is potentially catastrophic for anyone trying to make a career out of third-party game design, is the royalty on income over $750K. For some mid-tier companies, this will mean publishing for D&D is no longer viable. For others, they will look at the cut WotC is taking and try to figure out how to cut costs elsewhere to make that work. You can't cut shipping, you can't cut printing, you can cut how many people you're employing and commission rates. So we don't have to finish the whole thread, but the point is, the royalties on these big companies will have ripple effects. Basically, it's going to limit how many jobs those companies can create and therefore limit the number of careers that can exist in the third-party publishing space when publishing for D&D. So naturally, the inclination for a lot of these big companies would be, hey, let's use the 5e OGL and create our own 5e clone game that then we can publish everything for. Basically, create a new Pathfinder. But again, WotC must have some really enticing offer in mind that they're going to bring to the table with these big companies to get them to not do that. And then the questions remain, will whatever those big companies do end up rippling down to what creators like I feel like I need to do? If it gets to a point where anything without that badge is seen as a lesser product, then I'm going to be incentivized to sign into this portal, register, tell them whatever they want to know, and so I can get that badge and I can put it on my stuff if that's what it's going to take for people to continue supporting me on Patreon. So there are still a lot of questions, and my most immediate one is, what the heck am I going to do with the video that I recorded yesterday? Fortunately, most of it was actually about all the positive things that are coming, because I was looking at all this like dark timeline takes on D&D and thinking like, hey, remember all these cool new books they announced? Remember the movie that's coming out? Like, this seems like it's going to be a pretty cool year for D&D. So do let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on all of this. But do please try to keep it positive. Like, this isn't the end of D&D. Let's go into this new year with a good outlook. And maybe join my Patreon? And keep building. Bye.